Hello, in this video I'd like to explain a little bit more about the organized note-taking packet that I'm asking you to fill out. Basically, it looks like this. I gave you several boxes to fill in. So let's start with your overall general research question, the one that is guiding your whole research project. So let's assume that your question is, what can New York City do to make it more affordable for people to live in the city? Maybe you're thinking about moving to New York City and you find out how incredibly expensive it is. And so you're trying to figure out, what can New York City do to make it more affordable for people to live in the city? So maybe your first guiding question, because in your proposal I had you come up with subtopic guiding questions, remember that? So you've got the big overarching umbrella question, but then you could break it down into subsections. So maybe the first question here is, why is it so expensive to live in New York City? And that's the first thing you set out to explore. Why is it so darn expensive? And then your second guiding question is, let me think. It would be, okay, does the high cost of living lead to high rates of homelessness in the city? And maybe my third question is, does gentrification help or hurt the cost of living in New York City? So gentrification is when there's new development coming in into what have been historically working class, lower income areas. And because the real estate is cheaper there, more affordable, then you have real estate corporations buying out large plots of land and developing more expensive, newer homes. So this is a very interesting topic because on the one hand, it could bring shopping centers and create jobs. But on the other hand, because it brings in new development, shopping centers, and more luxury homes, then the people who live there get pushed out because they can't compete or continue to afford living there. So maybe that's one of my subtopic guiding questions. After that, then I want to start getting into like solutions. So maybe my fourth subtopic guiding question is, can the city or state do anything to keep the cost of living affordable for working class people in New York City? So what can be done? Does the city have power to do anything? Does the state need to step in and do anything? So I've got my guiding questions. So the purpose of this note-taking packet is for you to have an organized place where you start writing down quotations that you come across in your research that you think will work in your paper. So as you're reading, as you're listening to a podcast, as you're watching a documentary, whatever your source is, you will find quotations or information that you think, okay, this will work in my essay. So I want you to put those quotations in here according to the subtopic guiding question that they fall under. So if I find a quotation about, the city can raise the minimum wage, that will go under this subtopic question. But if I find some information about gentrification, then I would put it here. And then I'm reading something else and it falls under, homelessness. So by the end, you will have all your source information, your quotations in this packet according to the subtopic guiding question that is the most relevant. So in each of these boxes, the top one says source. So that's for you to write down where you got the quotation here. So let's say it's a podcast. Then you put the podcast title. Say you got something else, a quotation, but this one came from the CQ researcher article. So you are going to keep track of the source. You could do it any way you want. You could say the name of the article. You could say the name of the author. That's fine. So when you have your quotation here, then you have your follow-up response, because it's very important for you to respond immediately, comment, analyze the quotation or the information while it's still fresh in your memory. So maybe you learned something about why it is so expensive to live in New York City. You find a quotation, you put it here. Before moving on, please write down, say a few things, respond to this, right? Is this new information that you didn't know? Does this make sense? Is this confusing? Is this contradictory? Does this lead you to another question? Ask your question here. So whatever the quotation triggers in you to think about, that's where you start putting up your follow-up response. The reason for this is by the end, you will have your source information so you can cite the quote. You will have your quote and your follow-up response, and this is already half of your paragraph. It will be in an organized manner. So when you finish filling out this note-taking packet, you will basically have a skeleton outline that you could then start typing up, and it will become your rough draft. I always get students asking if you have to fill out every single box. No, I gave you 4 boxes for 4 quotations per subtopic guiding question. I don't know, you might just have 2 or you might have 5. That's up to you. This is just a template for you to use and then, change according to your own needs. So here we have 4 boxes per page. The other thing is I have 4 subtopic guiding question boxes. You may only have 2 subtopic guiding questions, or maybe you only have 3. So you don't have to fill all of these. That's for you to determine how many you need. All right. You don't have to do anything for the last section until you finish gathering all your notes. Let me say that again. Do not start drafting a thesis statement until you fill out the boxes that you need to fill out with your quotations. Because once you have your information, then you move on to the next section, which is drafting a thesis statement. And guess what? Based on what you discovered in your research for your guiding questions, how would you answer your general research question from page 1? So once you have your research done, you go back here and you say, oh, this was a question that was guiding my work. What can you, well, now I know a few things. So then you answer it. The state of New York should pass gentrification policies and raise minimum wage in order to make city living affordable and keep the wealth gap from growing, resulting in homelessness. So that's just an example. Once you find all your information, you're going to go back here and answer your own question. The answer to your question will be your thesis statement. Now you have two options. One is just to answer this question. The other option is to answer this question and include brief information from each topic question. Expensive. Okay, so I kind of did that. I mentioned homelessness, I mentioned gentrification, so I kind of mentioned that here. So there is method in my madness here. This is why I had you do this organized note-taking packet, so that when you get to the end, you can create a thesis statement. Yay! Once you do that, upload it, so I can give you credit for filling out this organized note-taking packet. And once you have this, just transfer it and start turning these into paragraphs. Okay? Let me know if you have any questions. I'm here. I'm an email away, and I'm available during office hours as usual.